Bonjour, and welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. There's one, Bob. One. Folks, Bob's challenged me to change the introduction. So there we go. We went French for this episode.
We're going to see how many languages.
Remember, though.
We'll see how many languages Chad can say hello or welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast.
I'm going to be using Google Translate and learning every hello language possible. I've got the next few already figured out, Bob. But how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm good, Chad. How are you?
You had to think about that one for a second.
Well, I was gonna, my subconscious mind went to, do I give the default answer or should I dump it all on him? Like, what's really going on,
And that's interesting, folks, because you'll want to listen to our next episode where we have an interview coming up that we just recorded. So it's one of those we've been there yet you haven't yet moments. Tons of fun messing with the time line
space-time continuum. Yeah,
we totally messed up. Star Trek would be very upset at us. The multiverse is confused in the MCU world. Bob and I have messed it all up, and we will work on fixing it. Bob, I was I don't even remember where I was reading this the other day, yet I saw this list, and it was 40 phrases to teach your sons and daughters so they can be more resilient, successful, and confident in life. And I said, wait a minute, anything that we can teach our sons and daughters, we can teach our coworkers, we can teach ourselves, right? They're lessons we need to learn. So take that part out of it. And then I went 40, no way, right? That's like a bunch of weeks of episodes if we really wanted them. I sent it to you and I said, Bob, what do you think? And you said, all right, Chad, you pick 5, I'll pick 5. We'll probably overlap on one. And out of this 40 phrases, we're going to come out with the 9 that impacted us the most between us. So folks, welcome to the 9 phrases of growth brought to you by the Win, Make, Give podcast.
Yeah, these are like, some of these are like things I think my grandpa would have said.
Absolutely. Right? Cliches.
Yeah, they're look, as we often do, Chad, I picked these out and mine are like equal parts. I'm thankful somebody was telling me this as I was growing up, or I had this in my ear, and equal parts, dang it, I wish somebody would have been saying this to me, right?
Yep. Okay. And we're going to talk about these and then we'll dive in. So some of these you're going to have heard. And then some of these you're going to be like, boy, I've never heard anybody say that before, or I've heard something similar to it. Yet these are phrases that we want you, our audience, to take to your family, to take to your kids, to take to your coworkers, to take to your subconscious, right? So that you learn these lessons. I don't know which ones Bob picked. He doesn't know which ones I picked. So this could be really interesting. We might not even get all the way to the 9.
We could end up with a list of 5. We could end up with a list of 5.
If we both pick the same ones, except I will demand I pick a 6th then, because I don't like the top 5s and top 10 lists. I want things to be off a little. And we should have gotten a sponsor. It just feels like the 9 phrases of growth brought to you by somebody.
Powered by the Home Depot or something.
There you go. And they can send us a check whenever they'd like. Bob, I'm going to go to you first then. What is the first phrase you pulled off this list that stuck out to you that we should discuss?
The only reason that I picked this one, it wasn't even that high on the list, but it's the first one I'm going to bring up because I literally had this discussion with my son Carter on a week ago today on Wednesday.
Okay.
And it's always ask, they can only say no.
Okay. Always ask, they can only say no. Bob, tell me the conversation. Tell me the lesson.
Particularly, we were at one of the dads on the team I coach had given us his season tickets for the Huskies. And so we went to the game, and they were this Husky basketball, University of Washington, and they were really good seats. They're like 3rd row. So there's 2 rows in front of us. And about halfway into the first quarter, in the very front row, there's nobody there. There's about 6 open seats in that front row, but there's a, what do they call it? A security guy or whatever an usher. Yeah. He's down kind of right there on the floor by where you would go into those seats. And so to get from our seats to those, he would have had to go out of our aisle, down 2 little flights, and then into that front row, but he would have walked right past that security guard.
Yep.
And so I was, he was like, hey, Dad, there's nobody sitting in those seats. And I'm like, why don't you go ask that guy if you can go sit in them until the person who has them shows up? And he's like, no, I'm not, no way. And I'm like, what do you mean no? Like, I'm like, you just asked about the seats. You asked how come nobody was sitting in there. So if you want to sit in them, go ask the guy. I'm like, what's the worst he can say? And he just kind of looked at me and I'm like, Carter, what's the worst thing that he could say? And he still just, and I'm like, no. Like, can you think of something worse? And of course he's 7, right? So he's like, I don't know. He can say that we're kicked out of the arena. I'm like, I know.
That's a great game though.
Fair enough. That is probably the worst thing he could say, right? Now that's not going to happen, right? So really the worst thing. And anyway, it was this fascinating back and forth. He did it and the guy said no. And so, but here's the cool byproduct of that, right? The guy said no, but he, like in one of the breaks, he kind of disappeared back underneath the deal. And then he came back and he had a bunch of cards. He went and found some like Husky basketball. They got the NIL cards or whatever. And so he gave Carter like a pack of cards that he would have never got if he would have even went and asked for. So nobody ever told me that. My wife grew up knowing that. She always asks. I think we've talked about that before. She always asks for the discount. She always asks for the coupon if there's one. She always asks. And it's been fascinating, the last 15 years I've been with my wife to see how often she gets it.
Question about your wife. Only child?
No, youngest child.
Interesting. Okay. Right. I'm an only child. So to me, I always asked because, again, heck, I got it half the time growing up and all of that stuff. I would just think maybe with siblings, you didn't ask as much because, the other sibling got it or this or that or the other thing.
I think if you were to question my wife, the reason that one of the reasons she became that way, I think there's some amount of like predisposition in us for these, but is her mom would never do it. And she says as a kid growing up, she used to remember sitting there and watching her mom not ask for the thing that in her head was like an obvious ask at that point. And because her mom would never do it, she decided early on as an adult, I'm going to ask the thing always.
Awesome. All right, folks, it's a great one that Bob brings up. Always ask. They can only say no. And the thing that most of us don't do is we don't ask. And it's interesting is, Bob, you'll say, oh yeah, well, they'll ask at the restaurant for this, or they'll ask here. What about in your business? How many times do we attempt to, quote unquote, sell someone something, yet we never truly ask if they want to buy? We just wait for them to say, oh, okay, I'll buy it. We went looking for a golf cart yesterday, right? We're in a golf community here. I know you like to make fun of it. So we went shopping for a golf cart yesterday. The woman who helped us never asked if we wanted to actually, make the purchase. She gave me all the information, but she never went for asking me, what's the worst I could say? No. Now she called me today to say, hey, did you have any other questions? Are you ready to put that order in? Right? No is what I gave her. She expected it most likely. And now she'll move on and she'll keep making the attack and making the approach. And if she does her job as a salesperson, sooner or later, she'll get us. Folks, always. Worst thing they can say is no. That's a great one to start us off with, Bob.
I love it. All right. Does that mean it's your turn? Wait, was that on your list or are we still good? We haven't
No, I did not have that one on my list. We are still good. Next up for the list from me, I think this one's a really important one for everybody because we always hear follow in the footsteps of giants. And I understand there are always footsteps to follow in. Yet what I want people to remember is this phrase, which is, there is no single recipe for success. There is one essential ingredient, passion. And Bob, I think so many people attempt to just fit into someone else's model, and that's not them, right? They're going to, I want to be successful. Okay, I got to follow Michael Jordan. Okay, but I can't do what Michael Jordan can do. There's other recipes that I could follow as long as I have the passion. You've talked about your son getting into basketball. You've talked about a guy you went to school with, right, who made it into the NBA.
Yeah.
He didn't have the same ability that Michael had, or he couldn't follow Magic Johnson's path or anything like that. But he learned to be a shooter, right? That he could stand there and make that shot and never fail to make the shot that had earned him the opportunity Folks, we look at so many successful people, and I don't, whatever industry you're in, there's a dozen successful names you could pull off the top of your head. You want to just cook dinner at home? You could name me 10 different successful chefs before you even had to think about a name, probably. They all have different recipes. So if Bobby Flay's way of doing it isn't yours, great. Go grab Guy Fieri's recipe, right? If that's not your way, go grab this person's recipe or that person's recipe.
But if you don't have a passion for cooking, get your ass out of the kitchen, because it's probably not going to turn out very well.
Absolutely, right? The only common ingredient is you have to have passion. You'll find the path that's going to then work for you and work for other people.
I like that, because I think, most of us as business owners, we like, we're often pointed at like, look how they're doing it, or look how they're doing it, or so yeah, I mean, I think that's good permission, right? And you don't have to do it exactly that way, but man, you got to be passionate about that thing you're doing, or nobody's way is going to work.
We talk real estate. That our background is both real estate, right? So not hidden to anybody who's been following the podcast. And even when Ben and I built IMSD, even when you were working way back in Active Rain, we didn't just say there was only one way to success, right? There was, you could do open houses, you could do Craigslist, you could do social medias, you could do this, you could do that. Okay, and I could probably show you someone who's followed each path to success. If you hate doing an open house, talking to my real estate agents, stop following that recipe.
Yeah.
Just have passion for success, find the recipe for you. All right. Bob, that's 2. Your turn.
Remember that things don't make you happy, people do.
Oh, I like that one.
Like, I really like that one a lot. And just, if I went out last night with Ben. I went and had dinner with Ben in Seattle. He came down.
Tell him I say hi.
I will. Our friend Chris Stewart was in town, Jesse Pacifume and Brian Gubernick. So it was a group of, there was like 5 of us. We went out to dinner. And I'll tell you what, we ate at a really nice steakhouse, right? And the food was really good, but I didn't smile. And there wasn't one smile, laugh, or happiness feeling in me that came from this amazing steak that sat in front of me. As good as it was, talking with Brian, joking about their hunting trip, like all of the happiness in that environment, right, was from. By the way, we went out before that, and Ben picked up a couple gifts for some his close people for Valentine's Day. It's not the gift they're getting is not the happiness, right? It's
correct.
It's the relationship that they have. So I think I spent.
So what are you saying? Wait a minute. If something doesn't show up in the mail, I know where I rank now?
Yeah, you got it. Oh. You got it. He bought one for everybody except you. I spent probably a decade in my 20s not understanding this properly, right? I'm going to buy all the stuff, and I'm going to Vegas, and somehow I'm going to spend all this money, and I'm going to be happy. No, wrong. Like, I was pretty miserable for that decade, because I didn't have, an awesome partner like I have today. Like, I didn't have my kids, right? I don't know. This is a reminder for me as much as anything.
And that's what these are, right? Yeah, these are phrases we want you to teach your kids, yet these are phrases for us as well, for our business partners, for our family, whatever level that's going to be. Bob, that is such a great reminder. Every time Nita and I have moved, and we've moved a bunch of times for opportunities, we're like, why do we have all this stuff? Right? It's not that. It's the people we meet when we're somewhere. It's the people that we spend our time with. We've downsized into this condo, but we're happier than ever because of the people that we're spending some time with, or hanging out with, or doing things with. Folks, the earlier in life you learn the lesson that it's people, not things, the financially stronger you will be later in life, because you'll stop spending the money on crap you're going to throw out or donate at some point.
Yeah, so true. So
All
true.
Right. All right,
that yours or mine? That was mine. Your turn.
That was you. Next, I've got one that my dad always basically said to me, and that is, when there's a will, or where there's a will, there's a way. Right? If you believe and have the will for it, you will make it happen, whatever it is, right? Angela Duckworth wrote Grit, right? And that's kind of brought this saying almost back in maybe in different words to people. because grit is passion and perseverance for very long-term goals. When there's a will, there's always a way. You will figure it out and push through anything, Bob.
Only if you have passion, though?
Oh, yeah, you can tie them together. Very nice. Only if you have passion. I like that, right? Passion in this case is the will, right? There's will. I'm willing to do this to get that. Okay, somehow I'll find a way. Maybe a different recipe than I was following originally, yet there is always the way. And studies have actually found, Bob, I was doing some work on all this earlier. Studies have actually found that growth mindset, right, where there's a will, there's a way, can actually improve academic performance, workplace innovation, because what this means is where there's a will, there will become a way. Your brain will find a way to get you where you're going.
I think back to like we were starting one of my first businesses, and we used to, we're like, okay, we're gonna get to our first 200 transactions. How are we gonna do it? And one of the hacks that we used to use when we'd sit down is we would talk about like, what if there was no financial limitations at all on the thing that we wanted to accomplish, right? And so then we would go and like lay it all out there. And sometimes when we do that, we'd be like, okay, this can't be done without that financial component, but at least we have a solution. Now we just got to go find that money, right? And find somebody to believe in us to invest in that. And so, yeah, where there's a will, there's a way, man. And we used to always start by saying, okay, what if money were no object? Because I think a lot of times we put, like, if we're trying to do something, we want to do something, right? We're like, okay, I got the will to do it. Oh, but we don't have any money. And it's almost like it's a first stopping point for so many people on so many big things that you might be interested in doing. So we would always plan it out. What if there didn't matter? And if the answer came back to, okay, we needed money, then we're like, okay, now how do we go find that, right? Because that's
if you have the will, you'll find it, right? You'll make it happen when it comes to it. All right, Bob, we're 4 in without a duplicate yet, because I don't believe you had that one, did you?
No.
All right, what's next for Bob?
Oh, happiness is not by chance, but by choice.
Ooh.
And here's why I think that one matters. Because unless you understand what it is that makes you happy, and we already agreed that it's people that make us happy, not things necessarily, right?
Yeah.
Then if I don't understand what it is that makes me happy, I'm going to have a really hard time finding it, right? It's not chance, it's choice. And so once I understand what it is that make me happy, and generally that's going to be being surrounded by amazing people, right? Then I have a choice. I just got to go out and find amazing people to surround myself with. But I don't think that you just, you don't just wake up and you're like, today it's a happy day. Why? Well, because I've made a choice that these are the things that make me happy, or these are the people that make me happy, or this is the lifestyle that makes me happy, or I'm never going to get to it until I understand what it is, and I make a decision to go chase that thing or attain that thing.
Bob, I don't know if it's on here somewhere on this big list, as I'm not reading it again as we go at the moment, but happiness, it's an inside job, right? And it's that if you're waiting, if it's by chance, that means you're waiting on some external force to make you happy. Right? You're waiting on someone else to do something that's going to make you happy, or give you something that's going to make you happy, or something. No, it's a choice, which means it's completely on the inside. And every coin, well, not everyone, because there's the magic ones that have heads on both sides. Every coin has heads and tails, right? You can decide heads or tails, and then you can say, oh, that's the happy choice. The other one's not, or you can choose that's happy and that's happy, right? You have every choice when you get up in the morning and it's raining. Is that a happy choice? Or are you going to let that, you can decide, hey, we haven't had rain. We've needed rain. I'm going to let that be a choice to lead towards happiness. It's awesome. It's here. Or you could, oh, good, great, rain again. You're right. Happiness is not by chance. It's absolutely an inside job, and it's a choice.
Your turn.
All right. 2, 3, 4, 5 so far, Bob. I want to take the next one on my list. I don't know if this one was one you had, but I'm going to jump in on this one. It's you're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. right? I'll say that again. You're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think, right? And this is a self-confidence booster from your friend and mine, Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, totally.
Right? And if you've never read The Tao of Pooh, you should, right? It's amazing from this little stuffed bear, right? There is nothing better than boosting self-confidence and self-esteem in your kids, in your coworkers, in yourself when you need it. And if you can understand that you're probably braver than you believe, if you can understand that you are stronger than you seem, that doesn't mean physically strong. It just means as a person, you can take more than you think.
You're more resilient than you.
There you go. Thank you. And that you're smarter than you think. Folks, this will boost your self-confidence if you can remember that Winnie the Pooh is telling this to us all the time. What a powerful message it is, Bob.
Do you mind? I'm just gonna tack my next one right on the back of yours because I think they're in many ways related. My next one was what we think determines what happens to us. So if you want to change your life, we need to stretch our thinking or our mind. And I think this is what essentially up above it's telling you to stretch what you believe is possible, stretch what you think you're capable of, stretch in your own head, like how resilient you believe you are. I think there's a massive amount of power in our thinking and our belief in our ability, Chad, to determine what happens to us.
Absolutely. That's a great point, right? It goes well with your happiness is not by chance, by choice. It goes with these all tie together so nicely, right? And Bob, as long as there's passion behind it, right? As we go all the way back to the other one I brought, we understand, and we've done how many episodes about what's going on in our head, right? And the thoughts that we have, that what we think determines what happens to us. Folks, if you're looking for, that to happen, that catastrophe, it's going to happen. Because you're going to just manifest.
If you're looking for the person that's going to wrong you, just wait. Like they're right around the corner.
That's it, right? You're looking for that. And if you're looking for a great adventure, you're going to have one when you go on it, right? You could go we could go see the same movie and you could love it, I could hate it. Depended how we walked into it, where our expectations were, what we were thinking, all that kind of stuff. I think that's a great one, folks, to teach your kids, teach your coworkers, teach your family, and teach yourself. All right, Bob. So we've got now 7 of the 9.
So you're up
we
for
have
8.
Not yet crossed over.
All
right. Well, this is not number 8, but I have to throw this one out there from the list just because I know you wouldn't have picked it.
Okay, hold on. If it has anything to do with cow turds, I did pick it. Is it cow turds?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I went with you're only as old as you feel, right? Because you've been mocking me of late, and yet, Bob, I do not feel my age as I'm pickleballing and running a marathon and all of that.
Not even when you were sitting in that golf cart yesterday talking about how cool it was going to be to drive your golf cart from the house over to the cabana.
Yeah, which is like 20 steps away. Right? It's like, why do I need this?
You got a place not close to the cabana? Ooh, you guys are like Party Central right down the street.
Absolutely. All right. So I just had to throw that out there. It's not, but my next one's going to go with what yours, your last one really was, which is, where did I put it? You can't control what others do, only your reactions. Right? So now we're in a situation where we're saying, you were talking about, right, happiness it's a choice. You were talking, on this last one that,
we need to stretch our minds to be able to determine what happens to us. Yep.
Yeah. So now we've got, you can't control what others do, only your reactions. How many times have we talked about things like that, right? You can't control that person cut you off on the road. You can't control that person bought your food at the drive-through window by paying for you before you got up there. Good, bad, whichever way it goes. You can't control what others do. You only get to control your reactions to it. And we want you to all remember, right? How many times have we had Ben talking about it where he'll bring up Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, right? And he taught how our reaction to our circumstances will determine our quality for life. So folks, remember this. You can't control what others do. You know it. You can only control your own reactions to it.
Can I admit something?
Yeah.
I do a really bad job of controlling my reactions when somebody cuts me off on the freeway.
Yeah. Most people do.
Really bad.
Most people do, right? Horns, honking, lights, speeding around. My father used to get around them so that he could, be the, yeah, absolutely. And we did a podcast a while back on stoicism. I don't know if you remember that one. And the serenity prayer says, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, right? We can't control what others do. All we can do is control our own reaction to those moments. Bob, before I give you number 9, because I know which one you've saved for last now, I'm going to recap our selections out of these 40 phrases. No, I'm not going to go post them all somewhere. Oh, maybe I should, but I probably won't. I'll forget to do it. 40 phrases that you know, all of these cliche expressions, things like that. Bob and I picked our top 9. Right? Because we actually have 10, but I can't do it. So since we didn't duplicate, I'm going to throw out my last one. Bob, here we go. Number 1 was always ask. They can only say no. Right? Always ask. They can only say no. 2, there is no single recipe for success. There is one essential ingredient, passion. Number 3, remember that things don't make you happy. People do. 4, where there's a will, there's a way. Number 5 is happiness is not by chance, but by choice. Number 6, thanks to Winnie the Pooh, you're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. Number 7 on our list, Bob, was what we think determines what happens to us. So if we want to change our lives, we need to stretch our minds. Number 8, we just covered. You can't control what others do, only your own reactions. And number 9 on these phrases of growth, brought to you by somebody who wants to pay us to become the sponsor for this, is?
I think this is, I mentioned earlier, some of these are ones that your grandpa would say. This is definitely something my grandfather would have said. Cow turds are a cattleman's dollar signs, Chad. It all depends on how you look at it.
Absolutely.
When I first read this, in my head, the reason I put this on the list is not the actual reason now that I'm reading it again. Because in my head, I put this on the list because of that whole sawdust
childish belief, and you wanted to just say cow turds.
Well, okay, I'm a 47-year-old juvenile. There's no question about that. But I was thinking about this from the sawdust angle, right? Where it's the lumber yard has this byproduct of sawdust, and then they go and they turn it into revenue, right? Yep. And so originally when I'm thinking about this, I'm like, yeah, cow turds, right? We would all look at them and go, God, what the hell are we going to do with these cow turds? And the farmer's like, oh, hey, I'm going to turn those into fertilizer, or I'm going to sell them to the alfalfa guy down the road that needs fertilizer for his alfalfa field, right?
Smart. Yep.
But as I'm looking at it right now,
not how it was meant.
Yeah, I'm basically okay, this was a really shitty situation, and we made it a good one, right? Yep. And so now, perspective. I'm sitting there thinking my kid's getting Carter's team. He's playing on the YMCA, which he destroys every Saturday morning, and then on Saturday afternoon he goes over to the select team, and he's a first grader, so he goes and plays third graders, and he's getting his teeth kicked in. It's really, really hard, and he's down, right? But then we send him back to the YMCA, and he goes and kicks the kid's teeth in, and then he's up again, and then he comes over and he gets. But we could be looking at this man, you're getting beat up, right? The way he's looking at it is, okay, that's the gap I need to close here, right? And so he already as a 7-year-old, this kid has a perspective that I don't think I had, because in my head, there's still a part of me that's going, holy crap, he's getting his teeth kicked in. Instead of, okay, now we know what we need, right? My lizard brain goes, he's getting his teeth kicked in. The brain that's been kind of reprogrammed over the last 15 years is okay, it's an opportunity for us to get better. Thankfully, my son looks at this as an opportunity to get better right out of the gates.
Yep. Perspective is everything, Bob. Because how many times, I mean, we've seen these optical illusions. When you're looking at it this way, this is what you see, right? You could look at the picture and everybody will probably know what I'm talking about. It's a rabbit or it's a duck, right? It's the rabbit or the duck, and you're looking at it, or you'll look at some other. Perspective is everything, because how many times do we get into a disagreement, an argument even, over something that was just a perspective? I saw it this way, you saw it that way. How many times have you sent somebody a text message specifically or an email that you meant tongue in cheek or you meant to mean something, and they took it a different way because their perspective was off, right? They looked at the cow turd and said, shit, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the farmer looked at it and said, opportunity. And obviously I've got cows, so that means things are going well, right? It's all about perspective. That's everything, Bob. And that's where they say hindsight is 2020, because perspective is very easy when we're looking back at something.
Yeah.
Because then we can see it a lot clearer.
Wait, so here's my question. Do you know how to say goodbye in French?
Au revoir.
Okay, so there you go. So you started it with hello. Yeah, now we're about to be done here. Okay,
yes.
Got it.
Just don't remember, when we do it in Hawaiian or in Hebrew, I'm going to say the same word on both ends, because it's aloha or shalom and shalom. So it'll just be confusing. They'll think we're starting over again.
Why do you know so much about saying hello and goodbye? Like, what is going on here?
I don't know. Enough movies, enough Googling. I don't know where it all comes from. Folks, we don't ever want to say goodbye, though. We have to say so long for now on this episode. And we hope you'll be back for the next one, because you've subscribed and it'll automatically show up in your podcast playlist. Until then, do good.